In this exercise, we're going to create a to-do list. This will help us with CRUD operation, CRUD, in React. So I'm going to create a new file, and this one is going to be exercise8.js. I'm going to say this is to-do list, and then practicing CRUD in React. First, to start with, I'm going to create a function, and also I want to be able to export it to app.js. So export, and my function name is to-do list. Just to see if this is working, I'm going to return an h1 tag here, and this is going to be exercise 8. Then I am going to import it, and that was to-do list from components exercise 8. Okay, perfect. So now I'm just going to call it here. Just ignore all of these. If you're just following this specific exercise, an empty app.js would completely work for you. But these are the stuff that we had done before for all of the other exercises. Now here, I'm going to call to-do list. I can see exercise 8 in this app. So I generally, in these videos, I don't do CSS, but for this one, I'm just going to do an inline so everything will be centered and it doesn't look weird. So for that reason, I'm going to create a div here as my parent div. And then I'm going to set the style for the text align to be centered. And this is supposed to be colon. Okay, so now if I go and check it again, now everything is in the middle, works well. In order to create the to-do list, I need to have an input, so I would write whatever I want in it. And then I need to have a button to update my list. So I'm going to create an input. And for now, I'm just going to keep it empty. And then I have a button here. And the name of my button is going to be add item. Okay, so now if I check it here, I have an input and I have add item. Right now, whatever I click, it's not going to show up. So what I want to do is I want to show as I write down here. So whenever anything changes in the input, it's going to show down here. And then whenever I add the item, it's going to be added to the list. For that, I need to do two things. Whenever I'm creating an input, I need to give it a unchanged props, and for unchanged props, I'm going to give it a function to say what's supposed to happen. It's going to be item input handler. Now I'm going to create the function for item input handler. For that, I'm going to create an expression const, and I'm going to name it item input handler. And this is going to be a function, and this function is going to receive events from me. Why do I need event here? You can name it anything, but it's actually an event. And sometimes people just do an E here for simplicity. So what happens is whenever anything changes in the input, an event is going to be created, and that event is going to give you all the information about this input. So for example, if I go to event.target and dot value, I'm going to be able to get whatever it is entered in this input, and I can get it immediately as soon as it is changed. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I want to be able to capture whatever is inside of this input. But in order to be able to track that value, I need to use useState. We talked about this before. So if you want to be able to track something, and if you want to trigger a re-render, you're going to have to use useState. For that, I'm going to import I'm going to import useState from React. And then I'm going to create a useState here. UseState, I have an array, and the first element in this array is going to be the variable. For here, I'm going to name it item. And then the other one is a function that with this function, you will set the value of your item. So if you don't use this, you won't be able to keep the track of changes in this variable. So it is very important to know that you're going to have to use this function to update your value. And then this one is going to be equal to user state. And here I have to give an initial value to it. For now, I'm just going to give an empty value. Now that I have my trackable variable here, I can just call set item, and I can pass event.target.value here. So since I passed this to set item goes and update the item. So that means whenever any changes happen in input, I'm going to be able to have that value in my item. And then now I want to display to see if it actually changes. For that, under the button, I'm going to create and H2. No, actually, let's do a little bit smaller. H4. And in the H4, I'm going to just display whatever the item is getting written. So I save this, I go back here. Now whatever I write, I see it down here. Now we want to start with the create. Right now I tracked what was happening and I was able to get that specific item in my constant in my item variable. But I don't need just one because I'm going to have a list of items. For that, I need to create another user state to be able to track that as well. And that is going to be called const item list. And can name it anything. Just want to make it easier to understand. Set item list. This one again is going to be another user state. And the value of it, it's going to be an empty array. Because as I said, we're going to have multiple values in there. I was able to have the item here, and now I want to take the items one by one as they are getting added, and I want to add them to this array. Sorry, I want to add them to this array, and I want that to happen whenever I press the button because this is add item. So for this, I have to call the props on click for this button, and I'm going to pass it a function called add button handler. I'm going to create the expression, the function for this one. That's going to be const. The name of it is, add button handler. This is going to be, and then this is going to be equal to a function. What happens in this function is that I am going to add this item to the array that I created in the item list. Now, let me show you something very interesting. I have this set item list here. If I pass a function to set item list function, it's going to pass a variable to my function, and that variable have the previous state in it. So right now, since we have an array here, it's going to have all of the items that we collected inside of the set item list. So for now, what I have in my set item list is just an empty array. But as I add item, there are going to be more items here. So here, I'm going to name it improve items, and I'm going to pass it as a variable to the function that I'm creating here. That is going to be an array that have prev items in it, and then I will add the new item to it as well. So let me show you something. Right now, I just when I created this, I just passed the prev items. And prev items is an array, okay? But if you don't put these 3 dots before it, what it does is that it considers the whole array as one element of the new array that is getting created. So if you don't have these 3 dots, you will only have 2 items in your array. One of them is going to be the previous items, and the other one is going to be the item that you added. So it is very important to have these 3 dots before your previous array. So wherever array that you want to add to another array, if you want it to expand in the new array and not be only just one item, then you have to use these 3 dots. I got the function from my item list, and I set it to an array that has all the previous items and it has the new item added to it. So then this function is going to update item list, and we will have an updated list there. Now that I have this array, I'm done with the creating portion of this thing that has happened here. But I cannot show anything here yet because I haven't, and when I want to add the item, even though it is getting added, but nothing happens. Since this is an array and I have to loop through it and go one by one and display them one by one, I gotta have to use map. Now I'm going to create an H2 tag. I'm going to create an H2 tag, and here I'm going to write to do list. So that means my list is going to show up here after this H2. So I want to write a JavaScript function here. For that, I have to start at curly braces because I am in return and this is JSX. And inside of these curly braces, I'm going to get the item list. Okay, and I'm going to say map one item, and the other one is going to be the index. And then I'm going to write my JSX code here. Right now, I have access to individual items and I have access to individual index of that item. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div, put everything in a parent div. I have created my parent div. Inside of this, I want to create, for example, and H5 tag. And inside of that, I want to display the item, whatever is written here. So now let's see what happens if we run this. I'm going to save it. Let's write actual things. For example, wash the dishes. And next one is going to be, another thing that I want to do is that whenever I write something down, so for example, do the laundry, when I add the item, it's going to add it here, but I want this to be clear again. So what I can do, I can set the initial value to item. And then here after add button handler, I'm going to set the item again to empty. So I'm going to call set item, and the value of item is going to be empty. So that's how I change the value of the item. If I write wash the dishes, and then I add the item, this one gets cleared and wash the dishes show up here. And then I can say do laundry, and then I added here. So I have wash the dishes here, do laundry here, and then you keep adding and everything is getting added here. And the input is getting clear. Okay, so far it's working well. Now we are going to the next step. Right now we created and we read, and the next one update. Let's first do delete and then we do update. So for delete, I want to create a delete button for each one of these item lists that's getting created. For that reason, for my H5, I'm going to create a button, and this button name is going to be delete item. So this is going to be delete item, and for delete item, I want when it is clicked, I want it to execute a function called delete button handler. And then I am going to create that function here. That's going to be const. This is the name of it, and it's going to be a function. So in order to be able to delete this item, we can either use the name of it or we can use index. But if you have multiple items that have the same name, this method is going to delete everything that has the same name. But if you're deleting items based on their index, then you're going to just delete that specific item that you click this button on. Now, since I need the index, I have to pass the index from here. But one of the things that's going to happen if you want to pass this function like this, every time that you're creating an item here and this button is getting created, it's going on click is going to execute. And the reason for that is the way that you use it here, you are calling this function. Okay? So that means every time that you're creating this button, this is going to be triggered. In order to avoid that, we're going to pass this as like a function. So this way, it won't execute as soon as the button is getting created, but it will actually wait for you to click, unclick, and then it goes to this function, and it's going to execute whatever delete button handler is going to do. So here for delete button handler, I am getting the index that is coming from the item that I am on at that moment. Okay, so I have access to that specific item from my index here. But another thing to keep in mind is that in order for me to add, delete, or anything as such in array, I gotta have to create a new array. So when I want to delete one of these options inside of my list, I gotta have to update item list, and for that I have to use set item list. So I'm going to call set item list here. And as you remember, we said if we are passing a function to set item list, it's going to give us a variable that we can name it whatever. Here I named it prev items, which stands for previous item, and I have access to whatever it is currently in item list. So the previous state is going to be saved in prev item. I am going to pass prev items again as a variable, and then what I'm going to do with prev item is I'm going to filter. I'm going to say, go through all the items. The value does not matter for me. When something doesn't matter, you just put an underline there, and then it means that it doesn't matter what the value. It says that I understand that there is a variable here, but I don't care about the value of that variable. And then for the next one, I'm just going through the index. And this is going to be a function. In this function, I'm going to filter whenever I reach the index, this index that the delete button is sending me. So right now I'm going to name it index to delete. This is the one that I am receiving from the delete button handler here. So whatever the index of that item is that I want to delete is going to be sent to delete button handler. And then I receive it here as index to delete. And then I am going to create an if statement here. And I say, wherever the index is not equal to index to delete, I want those things. And then if you reach the index of index to delete, filter it. So then I have this filtered array, and I'm going to use set item list to update this item list. So again, what's happening here is that I am going through the items. I am going through the item list here, and I am mapping it. So for each one of the items that has a certain index, I'm going to have a div that, first of all, it has an h5 tag that shows the item, and then it has a button that's called delete item. And that whenever I click it, this function is going to execute. And this function is grabbing whatever index of that item is. And then when I come here and define the delete button here, define the delete button here, I'm going to pass this index as index to delete. Then I'm going to use set item list, which is the way that we update the item list, which is the array that have all of my to-do list in it, my to-do item in it. I'm going to write a function inside of my set item list. So whenever I'm writing a function inside of set item list, it will give me a variable that I can name it whatever. Here I set previous items, and it has everything it has the previous state of item list or current state of item list. It's going to update now. And then, so when I have access to that array, I am going to filter that array. And when I filter that array, I am taking everything that is inside of that array except the one that the index is equal to index to delete. And then this here, it will return this function or this expression here. It's going to return a filtered array to me. And then with the use of set item list, I'm going to update my item list to that array again when it is filtered from the whatever I was deleting. So now I'm going to save this. If I go here and I add wash the dishes, and then the other one is going to be do the laundry, clean the room. So I have these three items here. If I go and delete, do the laundry is going to be deleted, wash the dishes is going to be deleted, and then so for example, I can just add another thing here, and I can delete this or delete this. So now our delete works properly. We are done with create and read and delete. So now we're gonna talk about updates. for update, what I want to do is that I want to create a button. Let's just do it here. I want to create a button here, and I want to call this button edit item. And for now, I'm not gonna change the function for now. So here, if I add something, now I have two buttons. One is delete item, one is edit item. So whenever I click edit item, this H3 changes to an input tag, and then this button is these two buttons are going to be changed to update item. And then whenever I push the update item, this goes back to the H3 and the updated item would show here. Okay, so for that, I first created the edit item. And then this one is I'm going to change it to edit button handler. Then I'm going to create the expression up here. This is going to be edit button handler, and it's equal to a function. So since I want to change the view, I want to change this view depending on if this button is getting clicked or not. And I want this specifically to actually, let me just show you here. If I want to create an expression here, since I want to change this view with another view, I have to somehow tell this item list that when you reached a specific index, you are supposed to change your view to something else. Just for that specific item, you're supposed to change your view to something else, okay? So again, we have to create another user state. Why? Because we want to keep track of the index. I can't just grab this index number and then pass it to the if statement that I want to create here to render another view for a certain index. So for that, I have to create another user state to keep track of that specific index. For this, I'm going to call it index tracker. And the next one, it's going to be set index tracker. And this is again is going to be a user state. And it's going to be a number because even 0 is going to be an element. And we don't have -1. I'm going to initialize it to -1 because we don't have an element at index 0, 1. The index start from 0. So now, whenever I click the whenever I click the edit button, what the hell? Whenever I click the edit button handler, I am going to receive the index of that specific value here, and I am going to set this to my index tracker. Here, in order for me to set it to index tracker, I will grab this function and I will pass the index to it. This way, the index tracker will get updated to whatever index was here at this point. So now I want to change my render, and based on what the index is, if the index is equal to whatever the index tracker is, I want to change the view for that specific one. So for that, I'm going to write this expression. So if index is not equal to index tracker, so that means that right now the edit button is not clicked on this specific item, you are going to, and then there's a question mark, and after the question mark, this is going to be executed. I want the first part to be executed. And these one have to be in imperative. If this condition, if the index is not equal to index tracker, this is the view for that element. But if it is equal to index tracker, then I want this other thing to be executed. Okay, to just copy paste this is going to be easier. And so I want only one button, and I want that button to be called update item. And for now, I'm not gonna create a function for it. I'm going to create a function later. I just want to see if it actually works and it will change the view for that specific item. I'm gonna save it here. Then now if I write whatever here, add item, I'm gonna create another one, add item. Okay, so now if I click edit item, oh, I forgot to change this to input because I said I don't want this. I want to change this to input. So now, update item, this button just goes to the delete handler. So if I do that, nothing happens. But the whole idea is when I am clicking the edit item, it's going to go inside of the editing mode. So I have this input to write whatever I want in there. For now, whenever it's getting clicked, it's going to take me back to, it's not going to update, but it's going to take me back to this view. For that, I am going to create another const called update button handler, and that is going to receive nothing for now until I figure it out. And then for this one, I am going to set the index tracker back to, I'm going to set the index tracker back to -1. So that way everything again goes back to, then only the first statement is going to be true. So everything goes back to the way they looked before. So now I'm going to set it to -1 and I'm going to save. If I create an element here, and then another one, and then another one. So if I edit item, this is going to look like a input button, input area. And then if I update the item, it's going back to what it was before. Again, if I edit the item, update the item. Right now, we didn't set any value to be changed, and then I can delete the item. So far, adding and deleting works. And then whenever I edit, I can just go in the input and I want to change those values as well. As you can see here, whenever I want to update something, I have to be able to keep track of it. So whenever I am updating this H5, the whole thing is supposed to be able to re-render. For that, I need to have another user state here. And this time I'm going to name this update item. And next one, the function is going to be set update item. Let's do updated item because this is a variable, set updated item. And then this one is going to be user state, and the initial value of it is just going to be empty, nothing. Another thing that I have access to here with edit button handler is I have access to the actual value that comes from that index. What I can do is I can set the current value of the updated item to whatever this value is. So whenever this input is getting updated, I will have access to that value. So I'm going to grab set updated item, and I'm going to put it here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass whatever is in item list at that index. So right now, let me explain this again. I had looped through all the values that I had in my list, and then I displayed all of them. And since none of the edit button are clicked, so all of these are going to, this one is always going to be true. And this line of code is going to, this is what's going to be shown on the screen. And then all of these buttons are specific to that specific item. So they have access to the index of that specific item. When I create a function for unclick, when I create a function for the unclick of edit button, I can pass the index of that specific item that this button has been clicked on. Okay. Since I have access to that specific index number, there are two things that I can do. I can set the index tracker. And the reason I'm setting the index tracker is I want to be able to pass it everywhere that I want to pass it. And also I want it to be tracked if I want to re-render, okay? Because that set index tracker is going to figure out if this line of code, if this is going to be the view or if this is going to be the view. So this is specific edit button this is specific item that this button has been clicked on is going to be stored in the index tracker. And that is, since it is a user state, it's able to update and re-render. That is the first line of code that I'm doing. Whatever index is, I'm going to save it here in an index tracker. And the second thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to say, go inside of the item list, go to this specific index that I have here and grab the item for me. So not only I'm clicking in that item, but I have access to the value of that item because I took it from a list item. And then what I did with that is that I changed the value of the updated item to the value that I got from the item list from that index. Now I can use that value in my input. So whenever the input is going to be shown, it's going to display the updated item. Okay, so now if I save this, I go back here and I will write whatever, add item. When I click edit item, then that value is going to show up here. So for example, if I write lucky here and I add this item, when I edit this item, it's going to have lucky as a value in the input field. So that's going to be easier for me to update. As a user, it's going to be easier for me to update it. Now we did all of that. Now, whenever we click this button, we actually want to update this list, okay? This item list have to go to that specific index, and the value that has been changed is going to have to be updated. And then again, we will re-render this part of the code. So I have already created the update button handler. So whenever it is clicked, this set index tracker is going to be -1 or -1. So then again, all of the only this part of the view we will see for all of the items, because this is always going to be true. Okay, because we don't have any item in the list of our item that is -1. Okay, so that part of it is good enough. The other part that I have to do, as I said, I have to update the item list. First of all, since I have to update the item list, I have to use the set item list. Set item list. And then here, if you remember, we said whenever we want to pass a function to the set item list, it's going to give me a variable and I can name it whatever, but it's going to have the previous state or whatever it is inside of the item list. I am going to say prev item for now. It's not a big deal. And then for this one, I am going to iterate through this item with map, and the values are going to be item, and I'm going to use I for the index. And then what's going to happen here is I'm going to check that that specific item that I am on previous items or whatever it is in my item list. I'm going to check that specific index to see if it is equal to the index tracker that I have, set index tracker. And you see, that is why I have to put this line of code before this line of code, because I am changing the value of index tracker. It would have been a problem. So before setting it back to -1, I am going to grab that value from index tracker. And if this I was equal to whatever the index tracker is, we want the updated value. So updated item is going to be replaced. If not, if the I is not equal to index tracker, then whatever item it was is supposed to be there. And that is the item here. And then we gotta open and close the parentheses for map. So now if I save this, oh, I get an error if item is not defined. Where? Right now I don't need this index anyways. It's not used. Okay, I'm sorry, this is not supposed to be equal. Okay, because it's a variable that goes in a function. So I save this and it should be good now. Yes. So now if I go back here, I'm going to rerun this. We want to see if all of the buttons work. So I can say wash the dishes and then add the item, do laundry, add the item, and study, add another item. So I have created three items here. The things that I can do with this, so clearly I can add the items and I can read the items. How about delete? Let's delete this middle one. So that one is deleted. Now I have wash the dishes in the study. And then if I want to edit this one, it's going to show up here. And also I can update it and say study, for example. Oh, I cannot update. Okay, let me see why is that. I'm going to go to updated item because right now I don't have unchange here. So unchange date input handler. Okay, so now I have to create the expression for this one, and that is going to be const is equal to function, and that is equal to, for this one, whatever changes, I will have access to it under events. So I'm going to create events here. I'm going to call event here, and I want to use this function to update the updated item, or to set the updated item. And here is going to grab the value from events dot target dot value. So now I should be able to update that value. If I go back here, I can't write now. So I can say study math when okay, update item for now. Edit, I'm going to say study math and update item. So now it is updated.